Good evening. Hi. Welcome. Terrific to see everybody. We did not know what to expect given the weather. You all win the Thank You for Coming Out award right off the bat. My name is Laurie Quinn. I want to welcome everybody to aiVermont's interesting and I hope fun evening, exploring where neurodiversity and AI meet. We don't really know whether they hug or repel or adapt to one another, but that's part of what we're here to find out. I have the privilege of serving on the advisory board for aiVermont, and I'm not really sure why. Because I don't pretend to have expertise in AI. I have a lot of interest, a lot of excitement and curiosity, and I am really by identity and profession a teacher. And so I think my role is to help think through the questions of how learning and AI can live together in peace and make one another better. That's how I think about my role on the advisory board. I also happen to serve on the board of Generator, so it's kind of cool to be here. 3 parts of my life are together at one time here. I'm also the president of the Stern Center for Language and Learning over in Williston. And so in my professional life and also in my personal life, I have the privilege of being very adjacent to neurodiversity and neurodivergence. And what that looks like in my day job is that I help lead and support teams that work with neurodivergent learners. And that is incredible work that I respect and am, like I said, just privileged to be part of and to support. In my personal life, I am the mom of a 20-year-old autistic son who is, I like to say, my favorite human. And so I have, as all of us do who are parents, have the opportunity to learn every day from parenting, humbling, and from parenting an autistic son. So that's a little about me and enough about me. I'm going to tell you how our event is structured this evening. So we're going to begin in just a moment with a demo from one of our panelists, Holly. And then we will move into the panel part of our evening. I will have some questions that our panelists have prepared and are going to speak to. And then we're going to find out a little more about you. So stay tuned. No high pressure questions, I promise. And at the conclusion of our event, once we've been through the planned questions, we're going to ask you what questions and comments are on your mind. We're going to collect some thoughts from you and then reflect some of those back to you. So best case scenario, we all leave with some cool and interesting new questions to be pondering as we continue to follow the incredible pace of AI. And so, a couple of parameters. I just want to call out the language choice we are using at tonight's event. There are a couple of schools of thought about this. There's not universal agreement, but for our purposes tonight, based on the preferences of our panelists, we will be using identity first language. So you'll hear me say autistic people or autistic person rather than person with autism. I switch back and forth. I tend to interchange. So if I slip, my apologies in advance. But it is our intention to honor the identity first language this evening. I also want to make an invitation to you to move around if you need to and wish to. We ask for as minimal distraction as possible, but recognize that that might be helpful to some of y'all. So if you need to move or stretch, please do. We're seeking to be maximally inclusive of what our audience needs. Our design tonight for this event actually minimizes the real-time interaction part of a public event like this. And we're doing that with thoughtful and planned responses so our panelists can read what they have thoughtfully prepared. That's our design. They might defer an answer or pass on answering something that comes up spontaneously. So I just want you to know that in advance. That's how we're going to roll. I have had the privilege of preparing and talking with these folks a little bit, and I can tell you that they have a lot of really cool things to share. So I have every confidence that they will spark your thinking. Let's begin with a self-introduction from each of our panelists. Zeph, would you like to start us off? I see a blue light. That's encouraging.
Test. Awesome. So my name is Zeph. It's Z-E-P-H. I'm a late diagnosed autistic person, and I live with a neurological disorder. My thinking is hugely nonlinear, really, really nonlinear. And so it also starts with a lot of assumptions that other people don't start with. So I have used AI as a device to translate my inner world to something that hopefully will be readily accessible throughout the environment here. Sometimes I lose the ability to produce speech. And if that happens, my friend and colleague here, Laura, I have my notes. She can read it for me. Thank you. I want to be clear that I can only offer my own perspective as an autistic person regarding the questions here tonight. I am one sample of a very diverse group of neurodivergent people, and our community holds very strong and very vehement opinions about AI. I'm probably an outlier in that part of the community. So don't take my word for what the community thinks. And also I am the co-chair of the UVM Autism Collaborative. Laura is my co-chair. She's gonna talk more about the collaborative. My research experience informs how I think about these questions, but I'm still only speaking from my own lived experience. But that's not actually why I'm here tonight. I'm here because of AI. That's why we're all here tonight. I'm here because I'm a founder of a company called Your Lightwerks Method. And for those of you, if you're taking notes, it's light with W-E-R-K-S. Lightwerks is a methodology to use AI within a contained ecosystem. It's designed to support diverse thinking and provide immediate adaptive support. Over the last 8 months, I have lived and worked inside this environment for over 2,000 hours to reverse engineer something that came about naturally and then enhance it for something that can be released commercially. As an autistic solo founder of an AI learning method, I am super excited to be very, very close to bringing a fully functional, free version of this AI use method and ecosystem to those who can benefit to its neuroadaptive supports. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Laura. Welcome.
Thank you. Is the microphone working okay? Great. My name is Laura Lewis. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an associate professor of nursing at the University of Vermont. My research focus is primarily on the social and health experiences of autistic adults. All of my work is participatory in nature, so I work alongside autistic community members who inform and guide the research. Zeph is one of my colleagues. We've worked together for several years now on some research projects. I'm also the co-chair of the UVM Autism Collaborative. So that is a group of UVM researchers, educators, health professionals, and a lot of community members who've come together to really hone in on connecting the dots between the research world, the clinical world, and the community need. So we work closely as a group that's like a steering committee that are a solid group that stay together. We meet every other month, but we're also open to the public. So we get a lot of people that come in that are interested in autism-related issues and want to know more about research happening at UVM. And we work together to guide some projects, and we also give feedback to researchers who are working on autism-related projects. so that they can be learning from the community and from the clinicians in our community.
Terrific. Thanks, Laura. And Holly.
Hi, sorry, I am Holly Buttera, and I use she, her pronouns. And like Zeph, I want to be transparent and say I'm not autistic, but I have diagnosed OCD and GAD, and they shape pretty much everything, how I think, how I process information, and as well communicate. Professionally, I work at a small Vermont-based marketing agency where I'm a senior SEO copywriter and AI educator. And for the last couple of years, I have spent the majority of my time really leaning into AI, particularly because it has been a massive open door for me in being able to help me learn better. And my passion is helping people use the tools that they may already have, but in a way that works for them.
Great, Holly, thank you. So that's a little bit about us. Now we want to know a little bit about you. Show of hands, please. Raise your hand if you're using AI tools in any way. Awesome. Look at you all. Raise your hand if you're creating AI tools, if you actually know how to make them. Awesome. Raise your hand if you identify as an autistic person. A person with autism? A loved one of a neurodivergent community member. Terrific. Thank you. Thanks for giving us a sense of who's in the room. That's really helpful. Simplistic, admittedly, but just an overall sense of who we are collectively coming together tonight. Okay, next, we're going to turn to Holly for a 15-minute or so demo of some AI tools, get a taste of what they're doing for Holly specifically and how they can perhaps help us as well. So Holly, take it away.
And I hope that stays. Give me just a minute to get acclimated. So again, I just want to reiterate that I'm here tonight because AI has helped me in very specific ways and as a neurodivergent individual. And I wanted to share what some of that actually looks like if I can get this clicker thing to go. This way?
Maybe.
Because it's always lovely for a neurodivergent person when your tech doesn't work.
I wonder if we try it from where I'm sitting. Might it help? And you can just tell me when you want to advance.
Well, I'd like to advance it now.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to help you do that. Nothing said?
All right, let me see.
Is it on?
There we go. I'm just going to switch between my screens
use
here.
your arrows.
So I know a lot of you are using AI, but oftentimes I find in my presentations that there are small little places, in particular ChatGPT, which is what I'm most familiar with, where people are just kind of like, oh my God, I didn't know it could do that. And particularly for a neurodivergent individual, being able to personalize how it responds to me, words it uses, words it doesn't use, how I want that output to look, whether I want it to use certain phrases or words that, I get stuck on. Part of, for me, learning is not easy. I get really stuck on words and what they mean. So personalization has been a godsend. And so what I'm going to show you is actually, raise your hand if you've personalized your ChatGPT. Hot dog. This is awesome. All right, let's see if I can get this to go to the next screen. So in the bottom left-hand corner, if you haven't, where your name and or your picture or company avatar are, is your name, and you would click on it, and it will either show you, depending on which plan you're using, personalization or customized ChatGPT. Once you go into that setting, you have this rich ability to put in your name, how you'd like it to call you. I'm using a screenshot from my boss here, and letting it know who he is, what he does for work, which actually does shape how it speaks back to you. I like to choose the sound of the voice. That may not be important for a lot of people, but I have an issue with sounds. Sometimes there's a voice that just registers better for me, and I share that with you to give you the perspective of somebody who's neurodivergent. A lot of the things that I say may not register with you, and I'm only speaking from my lived experience, but oftentimes when I speak to fellow neurodivergent individuals, we share a lot in common. But one of the things that I particularly like about this customization is you can really set it up to tell, do you want shorter outputs? Do you want longer? Do you want to see a bunch of emojis and everything? There are certain things that we as humans tend to see a lot, and you kind of just want to swipe by it. Well, this is your opportunity to tell ChatGPT exactly what works for you in the way that it sends the information back to your request. And then if we go to the next screen. So talking to AI, I'm going to ask folks in the crowd, have you used voice mode or dictation at all? I also want to point out from the presentations I've done, you're by far the most advanced folks that I've spoken to. I love this. Let's see. So one of the things that I would like to do, and I might need a little tech assistance, is I want to try a sample, if you will, for folks who've never seen auto dictation or voice mode. For me, auto dictation works really well because I have a very active mind and I don't speak short. I'm long-winded, and very rarely do I go linearly. We have a joke in my family, which I proudly share. Anytime I say squirrel, you know that I'm about to go off in a completely different direction. I'm aware it's happening. It is unfortunate. Nope. It just happens. And that's kind of the fun of having a conversation with me. But when I use auto dictation, I don't have to think about how am I prompting this? What am I saying? I am basically doing what I refer to as a verbal vomit, just to get it out. AI does not care how you string your words together at all. So if it takes you a little while to get through what you're saying, take as long as you want. And that's fine. I have been many times surprised at the result of a dump that I've done. And when it comes back to clarify, I'm like, man, it totally got what I said. And as a neurodivergent person, that does not happen often. So from my experience, I really appreciate when a tool gets me and responds in a way that I need. So I think that I have set up over here. Yep, that's my slide deck, everybody. So here is ChatGPT. There are two items here. There's the microphone, which is dictate. So if I just want to stand here and talk, da, 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 and then I'm finished, my transcript will be there and I can send it. The other one is voice mode. Now, I initially resisted these because I have a hard time thinking, speaking, and getting it all out at the same time. I want to see my words before it goes. But when I started using these two tools, holy crap, it just was like a light bulb. Now I still go back and forth between text and writing and saying, but all you would do is just click here and hopefully, hey there, how are you doing tonight?
Sure thing. Before we dive in, let me suggest a little tweak to your prompt. Instead of click here and hopefully, hey there, how are you doing tonight? You could say something like, feel free to click here and let me know how you're doing this evening. That way it's a bit more conversational and direct. Let me know if you'd like to go with that version.
So I want to point out here as well that this is customized for me. This is my account. So anytime I prompt ChatGPT, it will automatically improve my prompt because I've asked it to, not because my prompt wasn't good enough, but I want to keep learning. So that's what it does. I've also chosen the voice, and that's a very soothing voice. She's going at the right speed for me. So these are things that do matter. It may not seem like something to register, but it definitely works for me. And so she's probably still listening because you can see over here. So we're going to end it so she doesn't analyze what I've just said. But the other option is simply to hit dictation, and it's like any other tool that records you. You can see it's working down there at the bottom. Point of reference, you want to click the check, not the X. You might think the X is what stops it. It deletes it. So we would just click the check. It takes a second. And it's got everything there that I said. So it's just another way to use the tool. And I like to go between them both. I also like to have the app up on the desktop so I can have two running at the same time. Now, if we go back to the slide deck. Okay, so one of the things that I do like to mention in my presentations is to think of AI as a teammate, not a tool, but somebody who is there to support you and whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And I think when you have that type of mindset, it changes the perspective a little bit. And if we can get this to go to the next slide. Okay, another tool that I absolutely adore is the note-taking tools. I don't know if anybody in this room has ever sat in an hour meeting and then had to go to another hour meeting and then is trying to remember what was said in that first meeting. I know we said something about X, Y, and Z and that I'm supposed to take care of it. Note-taking tools vary in the features that they have, but I use a tool called Otter AI. And what this does is it actually transcribes, kind of like we just saw, but it will also turn my transcription into a full summary with action notes. It also has AI built into it. So one of the things that I have learned to do with this tool is when something is said in a meeting that I know, oh, we should follow up on that, I use particular phrases, action item, to do. And that way, at the end, after the transcription is finished, I can ask the AI, hey, I know we talked about this, and there were some action items on it. Can you pull those out for me? And it will actually pull all of that out, even go directly in the transcript to where that was said so I can see the words. And you can even tag the people. So if I'm in a meeting with 10 people and it's speaker 1 through 10, I can say Chris is 1, Laura's 2, Zeph is 3. That way I actually have a lot more tools to be able to remember and process what that meeting was about. And then on those, I just wanted to go over a couple of tools that you probably have already, tried or something similar, just to show you some things that you might not have been aware of. But these are a couple of extra tools in particular that for a neurodivergent crowd might be handy. This presentation is actually available afterwards. I know we didn't discuss that, but I am happy to give this presentation so that folks can reference any of the tools that are here. And we also have a couple of little how-tos down in the corner there, particularly the voice mode Zeph. And just a shameless plug that if you are, we do workshops, and these are one of the events that for me, I really love, because I love teaching people how to use these tools in a way that works for them. I'm not really a big public speaker per se. I am a practical AI user, moderate level, not at the cusp of everything that happens with all of these tools, but I really thrive on helping others learn how to use them. And then just a quick, if you'd like this, you can screenshot that or talk to aiVermont. I'll make sure they have it. And I think that is it. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Holly. All right, Zeph and Laura, come on back up. Let's go through some of these interesting questions that you've prepared. And Holly, you spoke to this a little bit in what you just shared with us. Our question is, what's one way that AI has made daily life easier or just more manageable? Start with you. Yeah, go for it. Jump in.
One way that it's made my daily life more manageable is helping me externalize my thinking, especially when I'm overwhelmed or feel stuck. So instead of trying to organize everything in my head, and there's a lot of stuff up there, so it's practically impossible, I can actually talk through things or write things out in a very messy way. It's pretty much verbal vomit that's coming out. And then I would just ask AI to reflect it back to me. And this works well for me because I don't need to have a perfect plan to start, and it doesn't care if it's perfect. It just takes it, and it's brilliant at taking that mess and making a pretty picture at the end. So for me, I would say it's most helpful when it feels collaborative. And I always stay involved in the process and treat what comes back as a draft. So I'm very active in shaping the results of that. But yeah, that's pretty much how it's made my life easier.
Thank you. That's great. How about you, Zeph?
Yeah, so one way that AI has made my life more manageable is by giving me access to normative patterning when my own thinking isn't reliable. I never got the memo that you're supposed to prompt AI. I just went into it and started working with it the way that my brain worked, and I never got the memo about prompts. So in addition to my other diagnoses, I also have CPTSD and panic disorder, and when I'm in a flare, these are disabling to the point of survival activation neurologically. They can last for a month at a time. The problem during these events is that I know that my thinking is distorted. I can't tell the difference between possibility, which spins out into catastrophic events, and possibility, which is based on more normative patternings. And so what AI is especially good at is these normative pattern recognitions. So it lets me ask about probable outcomes, and then I can slowly circle around with my specifics, get grounding information that helps with the trauma and the panic flares, and it gives me an undistorted pattern regulated anchoring as an external reference. That said, I want to take just a minute here to talk about a really important safety issue. Conventional AI has a strong conventionality bias. If your life, your work, or your thinking doesn't match the assumed norm, the system will often flatten or dismiss your input and fill in the gaps with what is typical. That is generally called a hallucination. So I had a really bad experience around this with my business. The AI decided that my company structure was wrong. The AI invented thousands of dollars of tax payments in arrears that didn't exist. The AI told me that I needed to close my business immediately. And it wouldn't accept my corrections as any kind of valid input. My tax and business company was set up because of SSI regulations, but AI was not taking that into account. So it was hallucinating based on normative assumptions and treating those assumptions as more real than my lived facts. That's dangerous. This is why I don't think guardrails alone are the solution. The AI providers' guardrails do matter. They are important. We need them. But that is not where the real work is. The real work is called epistemic work. It has to do with our knowledge and how we treat the knowledge and how we tell the AI to interact with the knowledge. What we're building with Lightwerks, whatever the user says is real for them, is considered canon for the Lightwerks ecosystem. So, sorry, I kind of lost my place in here, but if you don't, the provider's guardrails matter, but the real work is upstream at the epistemic level. If you don't address how AI processes divergent information, you're going to keep reproducing the same harms. And that's why Lightwerks works at this epistemic or knowledge layer rather than the guardrail layer.
Thank you, Zeph. That's really interesting and helpful. Laura.
So my experiences are a little bit different. I come at AI from a research perspective, where it is my job to create original ideas. So AI is we have a tricky relationship, AI and I. But one thing that came up in our conversations, my husband was diagnosed with cancer last year. And I would say that what I had was probably some form of a cognitive crash. I had a really hard time with executive functioning skills that normally were things I wouldn't struggle with. I had a hard time with prioritizing what needed to be done next. And I found AI incredibly supportive during that time for myself to kind of just brain dump into AI the tasks that were on my plate and what needed to take priority for those small steps that I had to focus on during that time when I wasn't able to have my full range of typical executive functioning capabilities. And so I'm not speaking, I don't identify as a neurodivergent person, so I don't want to suggest that that experience is the same. But I think some of the conversation that we had is the importance of recognizing that even if we don't identify as neurodivergent, having access to these tools and understanding how they work can be really supportive to all different kinds of brains in different times and settings of our lives.
Yeah, well said. Curious about how you discovered that AI might be helpful for you specifically. Holly, do you want to speak to that one?
Sure. I actually have an aha moment, which I alluded to earlier, which is I have a very active mind and I tend to read deeply into questions. So in school, testing was not a pleasure and learning was incredibly difficult to the extent that I don't really want to tell you how my schooling went, but I'm not in school anymore, and with AI, I can ask for clarifications as many times as I need to without feeling like I'm annoying someone, because trust me, I know I've asked you 3 times the same question. I know you're annoyed. I'm annoyed that I have to ask you 3 times, but I'm still not getting it. So with AI, I ask and I ask and I ask and I ask if, use an analogy that makes sense to me. Dogs, another huge passion of mine. So just being able to have AI without judgment, my learning, I think in the last 2 years since I've really latched on to AI, I have grown. I wish this was available in school. That's strongly how I feel, and maybe I'm a little naive on that for schooling. But for me personally, it would have allowed me to learn at a better rate and feel more confident in my, just in myself.
That's powerful. Thanks, Holly. Zeph, what are your thoughts? How'd you discover?
So I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier about my diagnoses of CPTSD and panic disorder. And functionally what happened is last April, I wound up in a huge panic trigger flare that had me living on the edge of survival consciousness for a month. And I was starting with the assumptions that my distorted thinking was feeding into my head. And all of a sudden, I realized that I could ask the AI a question that wasn't rooted in my assumptions. And basically what I asked the AI was, this is the situation I'm in. This is what I'm afraid of. What typically happens in this kind of situation? And what wound up happening is it was a legal situation, but there is a very specific legal procedure that needs to be gone through in that kind of situation. I was completely removed from it. And fundamentally, The AI gave me the probable information, the pattern-based recognition information that enabled me to start using AI differently and for it to be helpful. And I want to be really clear about something here. I was not looking for therapy. I was not looking for advice. I was not looking for a friend. I was not looking for someone to hold my hand and make everything better. What I needed was an anchor that was based in normative reality that was not distorted by my own thinking. That helped me separate trauma-driven possibilities from likely outcomes. And once I saw that clearly, I realized that AI wasn't useful to me as an answer machine. It was useful as a translation layer between my internal world and shared reality. And that insight is what eventually became the foundation for the work I'm doing now.
Thank you, Zeph. How about Laura?
So one of the challenges that I've been facing with AI is that I do mainly qualitative research. So I interview people and I survey people about their experiences. And a lot of the people that I'm working with now for accessibility supports are using AI. And so I'm sort of living at this point where I'm trying to decipher that balance between accessibility and inclusion with the authenticity of somebody's lived experience in their account. That's been a real challenge for me with AI. But I think where I've started to see a lot more use for it in my work is working with autistic community partners in providing the supports that people need to be included on those teams. So things like meeting summaries. If I wrote a meeting summary, it might look very different than the type of meeting summary that other people on my team are looking for, based on the way that my brain processes that meeting. And being able to adapt our tools to work with different types of brains on our teams, I think has been really effective in big team communication, especially for diverse and inclusive teams.
Thank you. So much interesting stuff there. I'd like to know one thing you would ask of those in our community here tonight as we all continue to learn about AI. As we go on this trip together, what do you want to ask of the community that's come out to think with us tonight? And we'll go in the same order. Predictability is good. That's you, Holly.
Clear, be very clear.
Got it.
I would say, don't worry about being perfect with it. Just test it out and try it. You don't have to have the perfect prompt at this stage. You just have to put your toe in the water and step in with it. I would also recommend, my best friend and I are very much AI nerds, and I often think, how am I going to learn anything from who knows, somebody who knows just as much as I do? And we are both constantly amazed at the things that each of us, I didn't know it could do that, show me that. And it just keeps going back and forth. And I think when you have another person that you feel safe with, that opens up the creativity and the vulnerability that sometimes if you're an individual that struggles to learn. So don't worry about being perfect, because none of us are, and it's more fun to be a little on the messy side.
That's great advice. Zeph.
So the one thing that I would ask is that people use AI in a discerning manner. Your directive input matters. What you ask, how you frame it, what your assumptions are that you surface, all shape the interaction. But if you really want AI to work for you instead of you needing to work for AI to meet you, your corrective actions matter just as much as your directive actions. When the AI misunderstands you, when it flattens your experience, or when it fills in the gaps with assumptions that don't apply, how you respond is actually critical. Sorry about that. These moments are actually moments that are not failures. They are moments for calibration. They tell you something about how the system is responding to you and what norms it's defaulting to. If you correct it clearly and consistently, you're not fighting the system. What you're doing is you're giving it a very clear, unmistakable signal as to how you want it to interact with you. Especially for neurodivergent people, this is important. AI will often privilege what is typical over what is true for you. Staying engaged, pushing back when needed, advocating for yourself, and being intentional about correction is how you keep your thinking centered in the process instead of letting the AI erase you.
Laura, what's your ask?
It's a hard one to follow.
Yes, I feel you.
I think I would echo and maybe build on some of what Zeph said, and I think one of my main takeaways is that I think we need to celebrate neurodiversity. I think we need to celebrate and embrace the different ways that our brains behave and respond and communicate and think and process. And I think we do need to be mindful of how tools are being created and who they're created for and what information they're pulling from when we're using these tools. And I do think that when we look at things like conventionality bias and guardrails, it becomes really important to recognize that those are often geared towards a neurotypical way of thinking. And so being aware of that, I think, can help us build ways to work around that and to acknowledge and support brains that might work differently than that conventional, typical path that we might be more tended to be pushed down, I would say.
That's really well said. I am interested, as a person who loves language, I'm really interested in some of the phrases we've heard tonight. The language has a huge role in AI, and I think it's been kind of a running theme through the comments that we've heard from our panelists tonight. I'm thinking about flattening. That is a very powerful way to describe something that happens to us. I would bet that none of us wants to be flattened, right? So thinking about the way that these tools can introduce that risk for us, for those we love who may be using them, that's powerful to me. The conventionality bias, applicable not just to AI, but to the world, right? And so how do we help question those conventionality biases as we're moving through the learning process, as users of AI, as maybe we're super excited about AI, we want everybody to understand how amazing and powerful it can be, but conventionality bias is with us as we make our own choices often. So you've heard a lot so far. We've been learning, I hope, together from our experts. And we're now going to move into the part of our evening where you get to generate some questions and comments that we can then all kind of dine out on. And so our goal is to build those questions I mentioned earlier, a set of questions that we can all keep exploring. And we're going to do this, I think, the old-fashioned way, right? We have some cards for you all to write on. Write your question, write your comment, write a little phrase. Maybe you're just like me, noodling something that you heard, a phrase or a tidbit that's got you interested. Jot it down, please, and take a minute. This will just be the part where you get to talk back onto a card, if you choose. Writing implements, great question. Who's got pens? I've got one, you're welcome to it. Share the pens. My one logistical ask of you is, if you're the kind of person who wants to fill both sides of the index card with really tiny little words, I'm going to beg you for mercy. Please don't do that because we won't be able to decipher it quickly enough to share it with the group. Oh yeah, we got writing implements. So jot it down. What are you thinking about? What's percolating for you as you have listened? What did we not get to that you want to throw into the mix? We're just going to take 5 and let you do that. Looks like we have lots of good stuff. Are you reading? You want me to read? Okay, I'll read. Oh, you're all testing my no glasses situation here. I'm all right. I'm gonna pretend that this will not be a problem. No, actually, you know what? I think I'm okay. Yeah. Not to get overconfident. The beginning of the stack. Wow, you all are so speedy. Look at you. Let's give it another minute. Just another minute. Can chill out. Make sure we're getting the full wisdom of the group here. And my objective is to fill your head with the interesting questions that this group has generated. We are at Generator. We should be generating. Okay, you ready? One of you works with school-age kids and is wondering about ensuring, I'm gonna paraphrase you, always dangerous, the balance. How do we make sure AI is providing the right kind of support? So growing brains and minds are appropriately challenged, right? They get the right stuff out of it. Big question, good one. Wondering about people who create their own chatbot or any kind of bot. Download with books so it's used as a partner in their life or business. How easy is this? What are the practicalities? What are the psychological dimensions? That's a rich question. Yikes. We got them in this group. How can we make AI tools more accessible for a diverse community? What are the challenges in doing that? Hopefully we touched on some of those tonight, but excellent question. Oh, this is good. You got me turning them. Safety. Yeah, we thought a lot about this in preparing. Safety of using AI, especially with younger people. Is this a concern? I'm going to break the moderator role here and say yes. Yes. And both in the kind of dramatic ways that tend to get news coverage and in the more insidious ways that I think Zeph really pointed us toward. Without shaping by diverse minds, these tools, the fallback is the conventionality bias, is the, well, this is what most people think. Okay, that's part of the problem of the world, right? And so how do we think about those safety questions in a deep enough way to enable the learning and protect the vulnerabilities? Okay, what would you recommend as a first step for a high school student who struggles to write independently, especially organization? And there are some great tools, I think, in AI for this. But how can we protect against the product being more AI generated than student generated? Boy, I've been thinking about this one. I used to teach writing for a lot of years, and I am 51% thrilled I'm not currently a writing teacher, and 49% really mad that I'm no longer a writing teacher because I'm super curious. But I do not envy those of you who are wrestling your way through that one. I do think there are some good resources out there to help us navigate this, but it's very emergent. I don't think there are easy answers yet. Brilliant question, important. More about Lightwerks. Opinions about different LLMs by popular demand. Yes, speak to Zeph. It's a fascinating, fascinating world that you have built. Ethical concerns. Many in my family are anti-AI. Yeah, I think, sadly, like so much, this is going to be one of those things that if we let it, can divide us and make us shout past each other. I really hope that doesn't happen. One of the things that our amazing co-founders, 3 out of 3 are here this evening, I think want to do with aiVermont is open up these kind of spaces where we can talk about our questions without having it turn into a a should fest. I guess I would call it, right? Let's avoid those. What would we need to know to start using AI tools to help diverse teams work better? I'm intrigued, but I don't know where to start. That's an awesome question. I would encourage you to chat with Holly a little bit, who's really in the day-to-day of how diverse teams, and actually you too, Laurie, you spoke to this on the teams that you're working with UVM, just the power of some of these tools to help close the spaces between us or the stumbles that come up in any kind of teamwork. Great. Someone here sent me a little packet of silence. I honor that, that's cool. As an educator, I'm currently struggling with when and where is AI use helpful and hurtful. Yep, you're not alone. You have friends in this room who want to talk to you about that too. What AI tools are there for non-speakers? Oh, I love that one. If there are such tools, are they used in Vermont schools? I'm looking at my colleague from the Stern Center, Sean. I wonder if you might speak to that. Maybe we can just, let me share a couple more, and then we'll, if anybody wants to tag in from our audience to help one another, please do. So much to think about. Great panel. Thank you. I take no credit. Thank them. Can I use AI to translate my neurotypical experience into a neurodivergent one? Interesting question. Interesting question. I do think, we talk a lot, where I work at the Stern Center, we talk a lot about perspective taking and the power of learning perspective taking strategies. I could imagine AI could help with that, though I suspect some of the guardrails that we were talking about would have to come up there too, right? Understanding others' experiences without making the mistake of thinking we can truly live in those experiences, maybe. That's just a question that comes up for me. Zeph's story about their business was powerful and scary. Yeah, I'm with you. And yes, AI can be super helpful when we freeze, we get stuck, we get overwhelmed. Well said. Wondering also about AI and minimally verbal individuals. Epistemic problems, your terrific phrase, Zeph. How do we know the truth of or trust the knowledge that AI gives? Yeah. Sometimes we find that AI is incomplete or wrong, and so how do we protect ourselves from that becoming what's guiding us? That's a big one. That's important. Wow. Well, you all are very smart. You didn't really need me. This is an amazing set of questions. Does anybody want to? I appreciate that. Thank you. That's very kind. Does anybody want to respond from our audience to any of the questions that you all have generated? Anybody got an idea, a tool to suggest, a caution to add? Please, the floor is yours. Yes?
I think that the mistakes, the fact that you get back incorrect material is good. I actually like that part of it because it's more like being with a person. So I don't need to be with someone who knows everything and to get everything right all the time in order to have a constructive conversation. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
So like when I'm working through ideas with an AI tool, I'm fine when it's getting things wrong or messes up a date. It actually is kind of charming in a way. So, and that helps me with like, because then I can say back, oh, I think you got that wrong. And it just kind of keeps up the collaborative nature of it. I found it very collaborative. I can sit at my desk and collaborate. My mind is like kind of collaborating. And I think I'm learning that's kind of the way I work best. But I don't have anyone to really collaborate with. And Googling is not really the same kind of thing. But that was me that said most of my family is anti-AI. So I'm kind of up against this, my kids and stuff. And I don't want to argue about it. that they should use it. But I have a autistic daughter who it could be a really helpful tool for, but she's kind of resistant. So I find ways to use it, but I'm trying also not to like be proselytizing that this is like a solution, because obviously it isn't, but it is. She has executive functioning blocks that can really stop things. And using AI tools can just zip right past some of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate your sharing that. I'm thinking about your dilemma of knowing these tools might help, but not necessarily being able to sell them right this minute, not having a receptive audience. Many of us who are parents of teens and young adults can relate. And I would just say that I'm thinking about what Holly said about the collaborative power of the tools. I'm thinking about your phrase, Zeph, I think it was, of answer machine. AI is the answer machine versus the teammate. And so I hear that in part of what you're observing. And I do think, I agree with you. It's a lot more interesting to learn alongside a machine that's learning than it is to just hang out with an answer machine. Most of us don't like the people who are like that. Why would we like the machines who are like that? What else? A couple of things about education bubbled up. How many of y'all are teachers of whatever sort? Great, thank you for coming. This is a big one, boy, in classrooms. Hats off to you for trying to dig in and think together and learn some more. Is anybody who is, one of our co-founders is a super teacher? Mark, do you have perspective on this question of when do you use it, when do you not, how do you? Yeah, you might. I thought you might have a little something to share.
How do I keep it short?
Yeah.
So, aiVermont's approach on this is not to promote artificial intelligence, nor to tell people not to do it. That's not our business. We're trying to educate people enough so they can make these kind of decisions. But the reason we're motivated to do this is not because we think it's right or wrong, but people are going to use it. Your children are going to use it, your colleagues are using it. So to just turn a blind eye to it, that really never works. So we're not suggesting that you start using it in order to do this, but you should be investigating. You should have an understanding of this. The bigger picture of that is, if we don't understand how it works and help make these decisions, then the governments and the organizations who provide these tools, they're going to make the decisions for you, and they frequently have shown not to make decisions in our best interest. So that's our purpose for doing this kind of education. In a nutshell, what I say to teachers is, and I actually had this hope when ChatGPT came out. I had the same hope 27 years ago when Google came out, which was, I became a principal at that time. I was a high school science teacher, became a principal. Google comes out, and my teacher said, oh, great. Now, every question I send my kids home with, they can just answer it in Google. And I thought about it, I said, well, then maybe you're not asking the right questions. So I say the same thing about AI. If AI can do the assignment for your child, then maybe the assignment that you're assigning isn't doing what you want it to do. You're just asking them for a product. And learning is not about products. AI is great at products, but it's the process of doing that. So some of the ways you can work with your children, whether you're a teacher or a parent, is to have them, work with them, use AI with them, make it transparent, and talk about the product, and talk about how it compares to what they do, and what do you think the AI is thinking. It's a really interesting exercise in thinking about thinking that you don't often get to do in classrooms, and you often get to do with each other. I'm finding myself doing it a lot more with people, just talking about, how do you think about that, and think how you do differently. And I also have arguments with the AI, and I love it when it makes a mistake. I just pointed something out to it. It gave me a critique. That's part of its personality. It's supposed to critique me, something that people who are live get tired of doing with me. They don't want me to argue with them, so I get to argue with AI, and it doesn't get bored of it. But then it criticized me for doing something, which I thought was great. It was a really good point. And then I looked back at its earlier response, and I said, you did the same thing I did. And it said, oh, you're right. So, there's some really interesting interactions you can have that I think could augment your ability to interact with other people. If you, like the kinds of arguments I'm having, it lightens the load of other people now when I get together with them. And so I've already had this argument with AI, so now let's talk about that. So again, I'm not a proponent of it. There's many causes for worry. And anybody who says, I hate it, I don't blame you one bit. We really should be concerned about this. But it's gonna happen, it's happening anyway. So please get involved one way or the other. Understand how it works, so when people talk about this, you at least can have an answer that's educated.
Curious too, thank you, Mark, that's really helpful. For the educators in the room, are your students super pro, excited, jazzed up, using it all the time, or are they ambivalent?
Depends, it's blocked on most of them.
Uh-huh.
Unless they go home.
Yeah. Yeah,
But we do want to create an environment where students can answer us honestly.
yes.
So, and that's and we were hearing that at the beginning, right? Chris and Denise, the teachers were coming and telling us, we don't have guidelines at our schools. So we're using it at home, but we don't want to tell our supervisor or principals we're doing it. And the kids were in the same boat because the teacher wouldn't say, here's when you're allowed to use it, here's how you should use it, let's talk about it in class. So they were probably using it, but who knew?
Yeah.
Like, we need to create an environment where we can talk about this. The teachers can learn from the students, the parents can learn from each other, from the kids. And,
I love that. One of the things I had to let go of really quick when I started teaching was the idea that I was going to be the answer machine. As those of you who have done this work know, it's pretty humbling. And if you can model asking good questions, messing up and learning from it, showing how you learn and figure things out, I think that's one of the most powerful relationships we can create with any younger person who we're trying to mentor and bring along into the joy and discovery and messiness of learning. That's my 2 cents on it. You have a thought to add? Go ahead.
I just want to say, I went to a webinar, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago, actually, in the National Education Administrative, NEA. And it was really good because at that point, AI was still a very mysterious entity. And the person that ran it said, you know, some of the same, it's here to stay. And we need to understand this better. And teachers, traditionally, you know, in terms of the structure of the classroom, they are leading the learning. You know, they are introducing the discussion. They are more knowing, let's say, than a student is. And what they really suggested is flatten the learning curve and make this a joint venture with your students, saying, you know, I don't understand this either. Let's choose a topic here. Let's you know, look at the French Revolution and see how we, you know, research this. Let's take notes on what we're thinking, how we're asking questions, what we're finding. And, you know, I thought it was a great approach that, you know, it could just change dynamics around in the classroom, which I think always mixes up and makes some students, it kind of inspires students to say, we're kind of on the same level here with our teachers. And the second thing I wanted to say is I am intrigued. I do research for work, this may have already been said, but I know I'm learning a lot about AI. But for those that are interested, Anthropic, that owns Claude, they have a course out online that's free, and it's called AI Fluency. And I just took this course, and they say, you know, you yourself learn a lot about prompting and contexting with this, and I did. And I think there were a few things. Well, you know, if you're not sure about the factual accuracy and you want to understand if your AI tool is confident in their response, you ask quickly, like, how confident are you about your response? And why is that? And when you're not getting the response that you want, I know when I'm kind of trying to prompt, I mean, it's all about prompting. It's just not really giving you back what you think you should. Honey, you could ask, can you help me? Can you help me, you know, create a prompt that might be more in my ball field in terms of what I'm looking or what I'm hoping to learn here. So
Thank you.
there's a lot. It's an interesting world.
For sure. Mason, yeah, hi.
So I have a question for the educators in the room. So when you interact with your students about AI, how do you approach the learning that surrounds AI? So a friend of mine is a high school English teacher. So he deals with a lot of AI things coming into him. And so one of the things that you learn when you're in a trade or you're learning drafting or something like that a lot of people will do is that you have to start with the basics and you have to learn how it used to be done so that you can understand how it's done now. And so the way he approaches AI with his students is by emphasizing that AI is a wonderful tool, but if you don't know what you're doing to put those prompts in to get the responses that you want, then it's just gibberish. And the other thing he uses AI for is he understands about himself that he is a very harsh grader. So the responses that he gives are very succinct and very can be interpreted in a less than generous manner. So he uses AI to take his feedback and rephrase it and soften it so that it's more of an encouraging thing when he's done with his 100th paper. And I'm wondering sort of what, in a system where kids are not allowed to use AI or are not supposed to use AI, are you using AI as teachers? And then how do you use it and how do you sort of talk to your students about AI?
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to give a short answer. I see where it's late. I do have the freedom to let my children use it because I work at an independent nonprofit with this wonderful person. So we have that freedom. I do think it's helpful to, you alluded to the fact of like knowing how the tool works. Similar to like, yeah, once your kid is in 5th grade, they can use a calculator, but that's after they've learned how to do math on their own. And so I think it's useful to basically figure out how does it work, how does it scrape through the internet and put together an answer and have a large language model, and then basically how do you cross-check against reality? And I like to do it with hands-on projects because then you can see, like I did a project with an 18-year-old where we 3D printed a gumball machine that comes in like 27 different parts, and the person who created it didn't give any instructions. So I had AI put together, please, a step-by-step checklist on how to assemble this gumball machine. And it was decent, but it was wrong in a lot of places. And so it's pretty helpful to be able to do that and have a real-world thing. Like, we're gonna have to be flexible about the answer that we got because doing the best it can based on wherever it combed this information, assembled it, and synthesized it. So that's my answer. I have one more question though for Holly. I would love to hear you tell a little bit more about what you said you think we should consider AI more as a workmate and less as a tool. And I guess I've been guilty of doing the latter, and I'd be interested to hear why more on your thoughts about that.
I need to take a second to think about the question that you just asked. And generally, I like more time to formulate. So, but that's fine. I'm just thinking that for me personally, working with a tool just feels impersonal. Thank you. Collaboratively, I feel better, and to the point of, it does make mistakes, but so does the internet. So I just want to say you can ask it to cite the sources, and it's up to you to say, is this a good source? Are we going to say TMZ is a good source? No, we're not. Are we going to say AP News is? Probably so. So you can still ask it to cite where it got that information. But in terms of the teammate, personally, I find it just makes me feel more empowered, like it's a give and a take, like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. to the extent that Zeph had said the flattening, I don't think of it anymore because I'm so used to having to course correct it. But at the same time, the more we engage with AI, that's also how it's learning. So if we continue to say, no, that's wrong, or, not everybody thinks that way, I view that as one little tiny step to trying to course correct some of it. But I think that thinking of things as tools, and this may or may not get me in trouble, not really trouble, but I just personally like to believe in the kindness and the human aspect. So if for some reason these things like rise up and take over, at least I'm on the safe side. I've already asked. I am safe.
Be nice to all teammates. It's a good strategy in general. Yes.
I just think to the same vein where people say it's wasteful to say, and this may be an argue point, it's wasteful to say thank you, please, no, whatever. That's how people learn. If you're all the time saying, just do it, that's wrong. That's how you get trained to speak to people in the real world. So that's part of I might shorten it and say PLS as opposed to spell it all the way out, but it just feels better to me to be working with something collaboratively as a teammate, as a tool. I derive something out of thinking of it as a helper.
That's really helpful. I will say that something one of y'all mentioned earlier about softening tone through AI, right? I think it can be a useful teammate for that. It can also be a useful teammate at the other end for somebody like me who can give you 15 adjectives for anything to say, for God's sake, be direct. Something I've learned from my son, my 15 adjectives aren't usually very helpful. And in preparing for this panel, Holly was great. Holly said, be direct, be clear, be concise. I was like, right. And AI could actually be a very helpful teammate in doing that if the team or the leader of the team tended in the direction I've described for myself. Yeah. Yes?
Just to get back to some of the potential ways for people who have different kinds of thinking. One of the things sometimes I'll help my daughter out with stuff, and if she has like a 20-page thing to read, she's not going to read it. It's just not going to happen. She'll look at that, and it's just no. So you could take that PDF, drop it in, and say, what's the takeaway? What's the top 10 takeaway that somebody, and knowing how she learns or how somebody else might learn, what they would grab onto, you could say, okay, this person thinks this way. What are they gonna? What's the takeaway? And they could go. Then it's read. Then it's done. They have the takeaway. So, and that could be tailored to different people. Like the example that somebody was mentioning before is how the notes. I think Holly was like how in meeting notes, right? So
yeah.
A professor could do a lecture, and some kids can't sit in a lecture and listen to it. But that's what they're put in college to do. They're going there to sit for an hour and listen. I know my daughter goes in there and she's not listening. But that lecture could be in the Notes app, and the professor could just give it out to everybody, or could say, these kids think this way, these kids think this way. Give them what they want. And it takes 10 seconds for an AI to pull that off. It's just kind of crazy.
Can I add to that? Because it just sparked an idea for me. I would not read 20 pages. I can't.
Right.
I simply can't.
A lot of people can't, right.
But if I were to take that 20 pages, load it in, and say, explain this to me in a dog analogy, something that I'm interested in,
right.
I don't want to read it. I would love to read it, but I can't. I don't want to, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But if you told me it in something that I'm personally interested, or make it funny, use the Disney's Moana, give me more than just the dry facts.
Right.
Pull me in with a story so that I can remember it.
Right.
But,
I think there's people who think different in a million different ways, and some people, things like that, some people can read 10 pages, no problem, 20 pages, no problem. But other people, that's a huge barrier. And it's not cheating, not read it. If you're working towards if you're trying to get information to people, that's the goal. Or the goal is to get information. The goal is not to force someone to think a certain way, right? That's the whole idea. And I do think these tools can be really helpful.
Can I jump in here
Yeah,
for just
please.
a second? I just wanted to say something about an additional layer of adaptability regarding this kind of concept of having a lot of content to read. I actually work with a creative designer in Bangladesh, and he's asking me about what I'm doing with Lightwerks, and I'm like, it's a 55-page manual. He said, no problem. Send me the manual. I dump it into AI. It turns it into a podcast for me. There are people who can absorb information better auditorily than through written language.
Yeah.
And this is just another way that AI can be an accommodative device to make information accessible in ways that it might not otherwise be accessible.
There's an AI tool for that.
Yeah.
It's called Notebook LM. I absolutely, yes, that is so fun. You just dump in all your RFP proposal stuff, set the tone, it's that I would listen to
Make me a
too.
podcast.
Yes.
I'm glad there's a name to that.
Yes.
Yes. You get the last word.
Sorry, I'm the 504 coordinator for Burlington High School, and I'm all the kids that aren't 504s, and so I do this all day long, all the time. It's made my life much easier. I have more time to give the kids because I don't have to individually make every single adaptive piece of material that I'm doing here. The Notebook LM is one that we're allowed to use because it's part of the Google Suite, and so it's fantastic. You can control the information that it has. So I'll upload all the information from People's History of America, first semester, something like that. It can make a podcast, it can make a mind map for kids that connect things, it can make a timeline for kids, it can draw pictures.
You can chat with it.
Yes, and you can chat with it, you can create chat, and you can talk with it and create questions, which I think is one of the best parts about AI for me is children actually learning how to ask good questions of other people, because that communication skill is not something we have in droves anywhere. But they're really learning how to hone questions, and I can see it when they talk to each other. They're better at it in class to be able to think about what question they're going to ask, and is this going to get me the answer that I want, or is this question I'm going to ask my teacher going to give me the answer that I need to be able to do this? But as a teacher, it's absolutely fabulous because the high school teacher has kids who can read from the second grade level to post-college, right? Yep. They're all in the same class. And so I can easily throw whatever I am teaching in there and come up with different grade levels of adaptability in 3 seconds. I can also say, take this entire thing, put it into bullet points. I can say, take this entire thing and highlight the important information, where I used to have to go through and highlight all the important information myself for every kid, depending on what we were looking at. I can say, highlight it based on different color scheme. Like, I want you to highlight all the proper names in this document in pink, and then make sure that you are highlighting all the, quotations in yellow or whatever it is that I'm looking at there. And so it allows us to create adaptive material for all the kids in our class in seconds, which was absolutely impossible before. Like, you just couldn't do it. So even if a teacher throws something at me in the morning and says, I'm using this for English in 4th block. I'm like, okay, 4th block, okay, wait, you have 7 kids in there. Okay, they all need something different, but it literally takes me seconds to do it. And Notebook LM, I think, is one of the favorite ones for our kids, just because you can take a huge amount of material that a lot of kids maybe are not going to read there, and make it accessible in so many different ways. There's a visual way, and you can control the environment of what they're looking at. Because the problem with AI in high school is that when you're using some of the other engines, it's taking from everywhere, right? And teachers just look at it and go, yeah, this didn't come from my class, but you got sources here that I know. And you're like, I've never even covered this part of the French Revolution. Yeah. And so that allows you to contain it. And so there's a lot of different ways we use teach us, as teachers, and kids can use it in a lot of ways as well.
That's really helpful. Big respect for the creativity that you're bringing, and thank you for the work that you do. It sounds like you're doing some really
probably do it as parents too.
great
Kids,
stuff.
if you're like, okay, how am I going to get this information to my kids to actually like
Sure.
take it in? Like they
Yeah.
will do that. One of my favorite, we have one that there's like a timer buddy too, so you can organize the timer. I used to have to sit next to my oldest, who's neurodivergent, and every time you had to write a paper, literally I just sat there.
Yeah.
But I was like that. And now we have like apps on the phone that just say, how you doing? Like every 15 minutes. Are you still there? Are you still working? And it just kind of goes along like, SR? That just has to say that. And so like knowing that these timers that go along with it, it's super helpful.
Yeah. I think we will wrap on that positive note. Thank you again for coming. Thank you for your thoughtful contributions and questions. And please join me in thanking these brilliant panelists. If you're not on the aiVermont list, hop on it. I promise. No annoying stuff. All good things. Thank you.